Now we come to our last speaker, George Soros, who is an author of many books, the most recent, The Age of Fallibility, who presides over Soros Fund Management and is also progenitor of the Open Society Institute. So before George talks, let's watch the screens. We're going to have a little bit of revelations about who the real George Soros actually is.
This man, radical left-winger George Soros, is amassing tremendous political power with the help of some mainstream media. We'll have a Factor investigation.
Factor has been investigating far-left billionaire George Soros, a man who wants to impose a radical left agenda on America. And under the radar, he is making great progress. Soros has set up a complicated political operation designed to do two things: buy influence among some liberal politicians and smear people with whom he disagrees. An extremist who wants open borders, a one-world foreign policy, legalized drugs, euthanasia, and on. My book, Culture Warrior, documents the Soros policy and his tax-evading businesses located in Curacao and Bermuda. Monica, begin with you. Did I leave anything out?
No, I think you were right on. And you know what? This is an incredibly well-oiled, brilliantly orchestrated machine.
George Soros is the wizard, if you're talking about the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Who is this guy?
Well, George Soros is a billionaire who I think is largely anti-Bush.
Well, that's right. George Soros is really the Dr. Evil of the whole world of left-wing foundation.
Well, frankly, he's, in my humble opinion, George Soros is a madman.
George Soros, full of money and liberal ideas, like legalizing drugs, letting felons vote, and keeping the death tax.
I don't know where George Soros gets his money. I don't know where, if it comes overseas or from drug groups or where it comes from. And
Excuse me?
Well, that's what he's been for a number of years. George Soros has been for legalizing drugs in this country. So, I mean, he's got a lot of ancillary interests out there.
He really hates this country, and he funds these things, as your chart points out, and open borders and even radical Islamic groups that defend suicide bombers.
In the Democratic Party, George Soros has bought his way into your party, and he is funding smear groups that pretend to be objective. It's time to call a spade, and a socialist a socialist. The only thing worse than being a socialist is denying that you're a socialist.
Well, now we come to present-day America and the war on terror. Orwell, in 1984, gave the picture of a totalitarian regime with the Ministry of Truth controlling all the outlets and the thought police dealing with dissidents. Obviously, America today is not a country like that. We are an open society, we have pluralistic media, we have the rule of law. And nevertheless, the propaganda methods described in Orwell's 1984, Newspeak, which is basically a language of deliberate deception, is flourishing in America today.
You're a very smart man, London School of Economics. Is that a proper statement to compare the leader of the free world to a Nazi?
No, Soros calls Bush a Nazi. And that actually is one of the examples of Newspeak, of the techniques used to distort reality. And actually, the art of deception has become a science. I actually try to analyze the various forms of deliberate deception, and I studied the literature of the right wing about me, and actually sort of identified some of these techniques. Transference is one of the most powerful ones, imputing to your opponent your own motives. Extremists, let's say, calling me extremist. Then there is the conspiracy theory, which is, and guilt by association, not a very favorite. And then I gave a list in the book. But the question still remains, how come that the public is so susceptible to Newspeak and the distortion of reality? And there, I think one has to question the prevailing value system in America, because we are very pragmatic and results-oriented, and we don't really care how the results are achieved. We must also be really concerned with the pursuit of truth. Now, why should we be concerned? And here, I think the war on terror gives you the perfect reason for doing so, because it was the most successful piece of manipulation. President Bush got overwhelming public support, and he could do what he wanted. He wanted to invade Iraq, he could do it. And yet, the results are diametrically opposed to what he himself was seeking to achieve, and what America, what is good for America. And you create a permanent war, which is in fact the conditions described in 1984, because terrorists are invisible, therefore they'll never disappear. So as long as you wage a war on terror, you can continue to do so forever. And you can use it to identify anybody as the enemy, because after all, as we well know, Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. In fact, he was opposed to Al-Qaeda. And that is, in fact, what the manipulation of truth has produced. And therefore, we must reassert the importance of truth, because otherwise our actions will have unintended consequences, and we will get into a great deal of trouble, which the present time we are in. So this is a moment, I think, that we need to learn something from the terrible mistake that we've been made to participate in with the war on terror and invasion of Iraq, and reassert the importance of understanding reality in preference to manipulating it. Now, how can we achieve it? That is the challenge. And I think here Orwell and Newspeak could be very useful, because I believe that the only way to protect ourselves against deliberate deception is by recognizing it. So bringing it into consciousness, focusing on it, instead of allowing it to invade us at the periphery. It's not enough to have a critical thinking and a pluralistic media. We must also be really concerned with the pursuit of truth. So this is the task that confronts us, to regain our sanity and our position in the world. Good.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.